everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Embodied Divinity. I am here with Emily Wilcox, and I am so excited to dive into this conversation. Hi, Emily. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Nikyla. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, as we dive in today, the question I start off every show with is, how did you become the woman or being sitting in front of me today?
Oh man, it's been such a journey. Of course, probably a zillion lifetimes, but even just in this one lifetime, so much inner child healing and money work, and also just learning to believe that what I want to say is something that someone else wants to listen to. And it's just been really brick by brick. And that's something I talk to my clients a lot about as well, because I think sometimes it can feel so overwhelming. Like, I want to build a business and I want to have a podcast and I want this and I want that. And also I'm at ground zero. Like, how do I get started? And it's like brick by brick, one piece at a time. And then in a couple of years, you're going to look at what you've built and go, holy smokes, I can't believe this is my life and this is my business. And I think the same is true with just who I am and the way that I'm able to show up on a podcast like this today.
I love that. And it's so true because, the people listening and watching and just everybody in the world, really, they look at people, right? And they see the finished result or the result that's there in that moment, and they don't see every step that it took to get there. And it's like, we've all been on this journey. We've all had to take these baby steps, and it's powerful that women like you can sit in front of us and also give guidance to how to make it easier so that it's not as painful and heart-wrenching as it might have been for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just trusting that, like, I don't know that I could have changed any piece of my journey, and I don't know that any of us can, but where we slow it down is in the resistance. It's like Abraham Hicks talks about upstream or downstream all the time. And I really love that analogy, because when you imagine being in a rushing river, it's like you can choose to swim upstream. You're just not going to feel like you're making any progress. You're going to feel like you're exactly where you're at and you're exhausted. And you can also choose to turn and go downstream, and then you're still steering, you're still keeping your head above water. It's not like you're doing nothing, but you make insane progress. You're nowhere near where you started. And those are the choices we have. And so I feel like anytime something is coming up to be healed, or something that feels like a redirection, or it feels, I wanted to go this way and I just hit a dead end, I don't get it. It's like, well, we can sit there trying to chip away at that wall that's in front of us, or we can choose the path of least resistance. Like, okay, for whatever reason, wasn't meant to go that way. So what if I just turned around and allowed myself to be carried downstream? And when we do that, it does become easier, which is not to say effortless, but it becomes more enjoyable to do this inner healing and be on this journey of life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like standing in the waves. You can either let them crash into you or you can dive in and go with the flow.
Yeah.
What would you suggest to somebody who is maybe swimming upstream right now? What does that turnaround look like? And how do they even know once they've turned around? Because sometimes when you're in the water, you're in the water, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really multifaceted. I would say, for sure, especially for women, it's understanding your own intuition and what that feels like in your body. To me, that's so foundational. And I love human design as a tool to help with that. But whatever it is, it's like that practice of going inward and noticing how you actually feel. And, intuition is going to feel a little different to each of us, but it helps us to feel whether we are going downstream. And often what feels correct or what feels right and what feels intuitively true, it's not that it's easy. It's not that it's like all signs are flashing and pointing in that direction. It's just like this underlying hum or whisper that is steady and true. And then when we line up with it, I don't think everything changes right away. I think there's that point in time where you're like, I'm flipping crazy. I don't know. Kind of see, but you know, our intuition is always in our body. And you know, being in our body is not always the easiest for us. There's often deconditioning and healing that needs to happen because we've been taught to disconnect from it. And especially if there's been any experience of trauma, or even just, you know, I was like such a people pleaser, high achiever. And so my coping strategy was like to disconnect and suppress what I wanted so that I could just more easily do what you wanted. And so I had to get back in relationship with myself and actually start noticing what it felt like in my body. Because before that just seemed inconvenient and not worthy of taking the time and space to notice. But once we get back into that, I think the female body is so incredible, and she really knows, and she does guide us, and she'll tell us whether we're going downstream or not.
Absolutely. Like when you can get in tune with your body, it is so powerful. And I think there's also like that learning curve of as you regulate your nervous system, right, and come back into that harmonious way of being, it's also like for a second there, it does feel uncomfortable. And it doesn't mean that you can't trust it, because people pleasing might have felt good before in terms of familiar, how you got validation from people. And then suddenly you stop and that validation's not there. And it's like this gaping hole. And you have to learn to go in and say, this uncomfortability is not my body saying this is bad and wrong. This is my body saying I'm coming into alignment and I'm learning. And it can feel really uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so powerful. So, Emily, I know that a lot of what you do is around healing money wounds. And I know so many of my listeners, and especially in the world right now, there are so many stories and wounds coming up around money. And I would just love to hear about why money wounds is a passion for you and kind of what got you started on that path.
Yeah, it was so intuitively guided, or it was my intuition, but it actually, I was the CEO of our agency at the time. And I think, you know, this was like at the end of 2020, and we just done like a $700,000 cash year. Plus we had another e-commerce business as well. And you know, that agency still exists, and we've now done back-to-back 7-figure cash years. So it wasn't like I needed to do something to make money. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people that get into money coaching and tell you that they're going to make you money, when you actually look at their money story, it's like not what you would want. So I didn't go into it as like, I'm going to make so much money doing this. This is a get rich quick scheme. It was very intuitively guided. I got the message that I was meant to be coaching. And I was like, okay, I'll listen, but on what? And it felt like money was the answer. And I remember being brave enough to share that with like one of my best friends. And her response was, yeah, of course, that feels so right. But to me, I had a lot of imposter syndrome around it. Even though I had two pretty successful businesses on paper, I didn't feel that I had mastered money. I felt like money was something that I was still kind of chasing, that it still had a power over me, like I hadn't fully cracked the code. Of course, I was looking at examples of people that seemed so much further along than I was. What I did have was a willingness to listen and a willingness to do it anyway and do it scared, as long as it felt true and what I was meant to be doing. And once I started accepting that and being in that downstream surrendered state, that was when I had this idea that there was probably a version of like the Enneagram for money. I was like, I want to make that. I wonder what that is. And in that inquiry, then over time, the whole money wounds was downloaded to me, really. And so there are 6 money wounds. And you know, what felt important, I don't know how familiar you are with Enneagram, but it doesn't really matter whether it's that or human design. Those things can label us, and it can be a very empowering label, but the shadow side is that it can also be a limiting label. And it wouldn't be like, you're a money, blah, 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 and you're a money, blah, blah, blah. And so money wounds felt true and correct because we can have a wound, but we're not our wound.
Right.
And we can heal our wound. We can give it medicine, but whether it's there, healed, unhealed, whether it's having a flare up, regardless of what our symptoms are, it's not us. And I feel like that in itself is a really important and empowering distinction when we're doing this money work. Because I know you're really into inner child healing, and I am too. And it's like, we just use money to project and play out so many of those same stories. It's not, money is neutral, but when we weaponize money against our worthiness or against our feelings of safety, or we project on money that it's abandoning us, we're doing all of that from a wounded place. And it's really never about the money. But until we understand and get to the root cause of what actually is the wound, then we're healing the wrong thing. We think it's about the money and that we just need to make more, that we need to be a better saver, we need to learn how to budget. And that's all surface level BS. None of that will actually heal those patterns until we get down to the root cause.
I think it's so powerful to look at it that way, because like my perspective is that it's all about the relationship you have, as with anything on this earth, whether it's another human or your business or wealth, whatever it might be, right? It's all about the relationship that you have and the patterns that come up. How do you feel like, and I'm pretty sure you have like a money wound quiz, is that right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll make sure they have the link for that. But just as we're listening here today, how would you start to identify if you do have a money wound present in your life? Because it's not necessarily how much money you have in your bank account or your spending habits, but from what I feel is it's more about how money makes you feel, maybe, or what would you say?
Definitely how money makes you. In the concept that everything we have or don't have in our lives is evidence of what our subconscious believes. And so you can look at the evidence in your life. What does your bank account look like? How freely can you spend? How easily can you save? You know, what does it feel like to transact? When you log into your bank account, is it hard to get yourself to do that? Do you feel avoidant? Or are you checking it all the time? Like there's an anxiousness around it. Like I have to check and make sure the money is still there. It's okay. Or I'm not okay. When we start to notice that, those are our clues. Those are some symptoms that we have some money wounds. And yes, you can go to moneywoundsquiz.com and take the quiz. It's free. And that will share with you what some of your strongest money wounds are and give you a lot more information. But those, I'm sharing just some common things that come up with my clients, like definitely avoidance of finances, definitely like financial chaos or drama. Like I just got $30,000 windfall, but also our house needs a new roof. And there's just like this roller coaster. If you notice that pattern, that's a symptom. You could have a really fat bank account, to your point, And what you notice is how difficult it is for you to spend it. You have a hoarder energy around money. You can't let yourself make the big purchase unless it's on sale or you really need it. It's a desperate need, not just something that you want because you want it.
Wow. That's so eye-opening when you think about money that way, and also allow it to be a tool of self-reflection and self-awareness. And like, it doesn't have this to be this huge thing around your worthiness or a reflection of your success or achievement, but it's just like asking these questions like, what are these patterns? How do I feel? How does this show up in my life? I think that's beautiful. We talk a lot on this show about the masculine and feminine energies. And I wonder, do you feel that those energies have anything to do with money, our relationship with money, even our money wounds?
They definitely have to do with the money wounds. And so then it plays out in our relationship with money. So, for example, the hard money wound, which is like, I want to make more money, so I need to put in more effort. Wounded masculine all day. Like, I am in a leaned in relationship. So if I want more money, what do I have to do? I will think about it, strategize it, do it. I'll outwork you. I'll out hustle you. Wounded masculine. So that's the energy that we have to heal in order to step into next levels of wealth. Because the hard money wound's only going to take you so far. Like, you can out hustle somebody to the tune of, couple 100,000, which maybe is great and maybe what you want, but you can't do that to the tune of 7, 8, 9 figures. Like, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. The money shame wound, very wounded feminine. That's like, oh, who am I? I don't know. I'm not worthy of that. Oh, why would someone want to pay me that much money? And then if you've got a money shame wound and you actually get paid, let's say somebody, whatever, does a $10,000 pay in full for you, you'll switch right from the wounded feminine to also kind of the wounded masculine of needing to immediately over deliver for them. And there's this codependence of like, I'm not okay unless you're okay. And I can't be okay with receiving this money unless I know that you're over the top happy with what I'm doing for you. So it's just leaky boundaries, lots of worthiness issues. And then entangled in that is like the wounded masculine of wanting to over deliver for clients.
So if we're just looking at those two aspects, what would the healthy masculine and healthy feminine look like as they are interacting with money?
Yeah. So like in that same example, right? Like, I just had a new client hire me for one-on-one at my highest package. So she paid me in full $15,000 for 3 months. And what I didn't do was check on her a million times, make sure that she was okay, and start over delivering for her. She got an automated email that has a video of me celebrating her coming in. In that email, it gave her all of the booking links. The first time that was available was a week after she paid me. But I explain in the video that your actual start date with me is the day we have our first call. So I'm not anxious going, oh my gosh, it's a week before she can get on the phone with me. Is she regretting the fact that she just sent me $15,000? It's like, that's the healthy masculine. That's the divine masculine, is having some of these systems in place and boundaries and procedures and just a very regulated way of doing things with so much clarity. She's not wondering when we're going to start working together or how it's going to work or what to expect. She has all the information that she needs. But because I have that of like receiving and staying in the receiving energy and feeling that $15,000 and like circulating it through my body and being in the celebration of it and trusting in the alchemy that's going to happen in the co-creation of us coming together to do this work. So I actually couldn't have stayed in my feminine as long if I didn't already have that divine masculine in place in my business. And I would have felt dysregulated. I would have started going into that over delivering mode. So that's one example of like healthy masculine, healthy divine feminine. And the other example I gave with the hard money wound of like really wanting to lean in and hustle and that kind of thing. An example of a more healed energy around that is, okay, I desire to make exponentially more money. And I don't want to put in more effort, but I don't want to put in zero effort either. I don't believe in that. So what I'm going to do is start in the feminine receptivity and really make myself open and available to new ideas, new inspiration, new ways of doing things. And once I receive that, then I'm committed to taking the aligned action from a healthy masculine. And you do both of those things, your income will increase. You're going to have more impact from everything that you do because it's coming from a place of co-creation and receptivity, not I want to work really hard and so I'm going to hustle and basically do a lot of stuff that actually doesn't matter and doesn't move the needle. And that's how we create more income and more impact without having to work more hours.
That's so powerful. And I think it's so important. And the fact that you reiterated what every male or female guest that's been on here has talked about with the divine feminine and masculine is that structure and flow coming together, feed each other. I want to move our conversation somewhere. I'm feeling inspired to do this. And this has always been a passion of mine to make sure we add on to this. When I first got into the coaching industry 12 years ago, I was an only parent. I had leapt out of my very stable job, and I was kind of like drowning in imposter syndrome, lack mentality, all of these different things. And while I do see now that I didn't have the right mentors and coaches that could understand where I was at as an only parent, I also see now from the way that I coach that there's a way to meet people where they're at while still seeing them in their highest. And so if you're speaking to those maybe in the audience who are new to entrepreneurship or moving into this new wealth mentality, and they are still living in a lot of lack, maybe they're grasping though mentally for that deeper awareness of wealth consciousness and the ability to thrive, what would you say starting out would be the most helpful thing they could do with their money wound to really start to just climb out of that lack?
Yeah, I love this question so much. And I mean, if they're listening to your show, then I would say you're already doing something really great for yourself, like plugging into these free resources. I'm just so amazed, like the way that I grew up in like this very transitional time where we went from looking shit up in encyclopedias to having the internet and being able to search things to now where it's not even just like a Google search to some random website or a forum, but there's YouTube and you get access to such incredible talent sharing resources for free. Like we have never had this much access to not only information, but also to people's energy. You know, it's really incredible. So absolutely tapping into that. And I have my own versions of that, right? Email address, then I share with you a free 2-hour masterclass on money healing. And then I do invite you into a paid program. So if you want to go deep with me, you can. And also, if you just tune into the free masterclass, you're going to learn things and you'll be changed from that. I love Abraham Hicks. I think there's lots of incredible free and low cost resources there. And what they teach is really to think a better feeling thought. And that can sound like spiritual bypassing, but if you're in a place where you look around and all you're feeling is lack and scarcity, and yet you also intuitively feel like I'm meant for more. Like, I don't know what the heck is going on in my life, but it is not what's supposed to be happening. Then it's like, where can you find the abundance? And it might just be when you fill up a glass of water. You're like, wow, like I have an abundance of this free resource. It's clean. Like there are parts of the world where they have to spend a lot of time and effort just to get clean water every day. Wow. I'm so grateful for that. Like going out and I mean, I live in Southern California, so I can look at the ocean and that always feels so abundant to me. It's free to look at the ocean. You don't have to pay for the view that I have, but you can just drive up and look at it, you know? And so we really do have so many examples of abundance in nature and just that shift, because the truth is, if your bank account looks like scarcity, you're going to have to disconnect from that a little bit, because you've got to focus on the places that feel more abundant long enough for your situation to catch up. And so plugging into free resources like this, noticing abundance, disconnecting a little bit from the places that feel like scarcity, that really shifts your point of attraction, and you'll start to notice new things happening in your life that then give you more evidence that abundance is available for you.
That's really amazing and incredible that you said that. And I think that even just the abundance of the resources we have now and the ability, like if you don't know how to do something, you can literally find it out on one click of a button. I want to pinpoint one thing you said, because I think that this one thing is so powerful. And that is the free access to other people's energy. And I don't mean by siphoning energy, but I mean sitting in front of, listening, even just listening to this one episode, right? They get to feel the resonance of where you're at, where I'm at. Even listening to Abraham Hicks, you feel an energy resonance, even if you don't understand a word she's saying. So can we talk a little bit about what that investment of just sitting in front of that higher vibrational energy does for you, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, we're energetic beings. We're really frequency first beings. And it's so second nature to us that we actually completely forget about it. If it were a little bit harder for us, we might notice, but it's more like breathing. It's like our heart's beating. Like it happens so effortlessly that we don't have to give any thought to it. And so when we choose to do things that raise our frequency, that put us into a different energetic state, then we're a match. People will come into our experience, whether it's virtually, you might stumble across a different Instagram account, you might listen to a new podcast, or you might make a new friend. And it's like, oh, wow, I'm really noticing that my other friends are pretty quick to talk about the tough stuff that's going on in their day. And when I'm with this friend, we're pulling oracle cards, we're talking about our dreams, we're doing vision boards together. Like this is really different. So yeah, when you're tuning into a podcast like this, your frequency is naturally coming into resonance with ours. Like there is an energetic exchange. So because we have so many different inputs, unfollow the people that don't make you feel good and choose to curate the things you're listening to, the things you're watching and with, and make sure that they're people that make you feel good and that make you feel better. And like more things are possible for you. That's what's happening. And it's all better as your inner compass will allow you to very quickly figure that out.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. And this was something I wish I would have known when I first started, because It's how we move up that ladder of consciousness and being and into a different energetic vibration. And I know that you guys have all heard this before, but I want to remind you that every single one of you is worthy and able to choose those higher frequency feelings and thoughts, no matter where you're at right now. Emily, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, how do people that are really interested in loving what you're saying? I know we talked about the money quiz, they'll have that link below, but how else can they work with you? And what does even working with you look like?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, come connect with me. I'm hanging out online, Emily June Wilcox, or at M Makes Money on pretty much all the platforms. And I have a range. Like, you can join my Wealthy and Woo Club for $7 a month and go through really beautiful curriculum on how to build your dream bank account. And it's a mix of the spirituality and the strategy on how to do that. And then, as I mentioned, I had someone pay me $15,000 for one-on-one coaching. So there's sort of everything in between. But I try to do that strategically. Like, I don't want to be on one-on-one calls all day. I'm a mama of two. I want to be, living my life and doing it in a way that feels balanced. So there are people that want to pay to really work super close together and have me in their business and be in their energetic field. And I'm so happy to do that. And there are so many beautiful ways for us to work together that cost anywhere from $7 to several $100s.
Thank you. This is so exciting. And I know that the people listening are going to be so grateful for these resources that you have. I'm excited to do your money wound quiz. I love getting to know more about my relationship with money. So thank you so much, Emily, for being on Embodied Divinity. And everybody listening, as always, breathe deep and plan on miracles.